Hey everyone, this is Fiona, and in this video I wanted to talk about why I have stopped watching horror films. So it actually started after I had to prepare because I went on an ayahuasca journey, and one of the things was to stop watching violent films. And actually during that time I was in the middle of The Walking Dead. I think I got to season 8. And, The Walking Dead is all about zombies, people, their guts are falling off, people eating each other, people dying horrible deaths, and, zombies eating humans, eating flesh, and you just are seeing everything. You start to dehumanize everything. It just kind of numbs your brain. And I think why I was so attracted to The Walking Dead was because it's kind of like a adrenaline rush, right? You get this sense of like, oh my God, all this bad stuff is happening, and it starts to numb your senses. You start to not really think much of it. And so in a way it was kind of like a numbing device. Like people would use alcohol or drugs. So by clearing that out of my whole, they call it the dieta in when you're preparing for your ayahuasca journey. And so you're basically getting rid of anything that's violent, anything that's like, pornographic or anything like that. So I realized after doing ayahuasca that watching these types of films are like implanting all this like fear and this like into my subconscious. And it's like creating I guess like a low level anxiety. Like it would kind of create this like paranoia, that would kind of come up during certain times, usually late at night. I'd be scared of the dark or something like that. And this goes back to when I was a child. Like when I was 6 or 7 years old, my dad showed my sister and I The Exorcist, which is probably one of the scariest films ever. And it's just disgusting and gross. And Linda Blair, her character, is possessed by the devil or some demon. And she talks in this really scary voice. I remember that used to be a big thing for me, was the auditory, the hearing of the voice of this. You see this young child and you hear this like really growly, low, morphed voice coming from this girl's body. And it was just terrifying. And I remember not being able to sleep in my own bed for about 3 years. It wasn't every night, but I would have this like kind of paranoia that would just kind of overtake me, usually late at night when I'm by myself. I also saw, my dad was big into horror films, so I saw The Shining, I saw Silence of the Lambs, The Omen, American Werewolf in London. Those were kind of, we saw the Chucky movies and Freddy Krueger movies, Poltergeist. Yeah, all the really like messed up stuff too. I mean, there was one called I think it was The Dream Master or something like that. And it was, I don't know, a lot of the films like would weave together like horror with like porn. It was kind of an interesting thing. So it was like fear, but getting turned on by that fear. And there's just like this S&M quality to it that I just am realizing how it just really messed with my own psyche. So after I did my ayahuasca journey last month, I actually went through all my DVDs and just got rid of all the horror films, anything that was like, anything that wouldn't feel good if I watched it. If I felt any sort of like adrenaline or paranoia or anxiety or anything like that, or stress, I would just like, I'm gonna get rid of this. And I've not watched anything. I've not felt the urge to watch The Walking Dead or any of the scary movies that I've had, just because I know that it's just implanting stuff in my subconscious. And it's like I would watch The Walking Dead from like 11 p.m. until like 2 a.m. or sometimes 3 a.m. in the morning. It's like that all gets implanted in your brain, and it's just like, why go to bed with that? It's like really heavy energy. And I'm just glad I've decided to just get all of that out of my life. Just anything that just felt like it was in disharmony with the chi, with the flow. I wanted to just, no, I just wanted, like Marie Kondo, if it doesn't bring you joy, then get rid of it. So that's kind of, I went through this whole purge of like getting rid of all my DVDs and stuff, and things that just don't bring me joy. So anyways, I'm curious to see if you have gotten rid of horror films, or is it still a big part of your life? I know my sister's big into horror films. She's like all about it. She's an adrenaline junkie. For me, it just, my imagination goes crazy. I sometimes can't tell what's real and what's not real. Sometimes I'll hear stuff. And so it's like I start to create these sort of scenarios because I was influenced by the films. So it becomes a little too real for me, and then I have trouble sleeping. I get in this like fear state, and I start to see things and hear things, and so my imagination is already kind of overactive. So I think that like getting rid of all my scary movies was a good idea. But I'm curious to know, do you enjoy watching scary movies? And are you able to kind of make separations from what you're watching versus, you know, your own reality? So I'm curious, because there were times where I would watch a scary movie, I just put up a protection rose, you know, kind of like have a little boundary so I wouldn't take on or really be affected fully by what was going on in the screen. And that did help, but it kind of made it so I was like, well, what's the point of watching a scary movie if I'm not scared? You know, like the whole point of watching a scary movie is to kind of have this sort of like psychological, like, you're scared, you get frightened and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm curious to hear what your experience is with scary movies.